Right, welcome back, everyone. Uh, this video is going to focus on the drums. I'm going to kind of do as quick an overview as I can. Here's the sound. So, I think I want to talk about the snare first, actually. If I mute this BFD track and play you the original snare, or what we ended up with in the room, it sounds okay. I mean, it's a little quiet because I'm in the mix. If I bump these up a bit. It's not bad, but it's lacking a little something, and this is where things like BFD really come into their own. Now, I should say I work for F Expansion Audio, so full disclosure. Well, we have a pack that I recorded called BFD Oblivion, and this snare in this pack is actually the snare owned by the Tacoma drummer Alex. So I wanted to kind of layer his snare with another kind of version of it done in a different room but with slightly different sound. So when you add that snare, you get more of a kind of punchy sound. So you can see in the plugin I've routed all of the signals. You can see at the bottom here, mono 1, mono 2, mono 3. Likewise with the ambient channels, they're all routed out as well via stereo 2 and the master, or stereo 1, effectively. And I'm processing them on these tracks here. Snare overhead, room, top 2, side, crush. So if we were to solo just the BFD snare, I'm getting quite a nice low end snap from that. And when you add that to the original snare, it all blends together quite nicely, and the processing is pretty basic. It's just a bit of compression, and I'm only really taking off like 2 dB, and the attacks generally will be fast, so will the release. The ratio is not too high. I'm not completely crushing it. I'm just rounding off the peaks of the snare a little bit so that your ear focuses more on the body of the snare and the tail, and that's pretty much for both of these top mics. They're doing the same sort of thing. You can see on snare top 2, I've got a slightly lower threshold. Oh, that one's actually getting hit pretty hard. If I solo that, and we take this off, you can hear that it's kind of accentuating the transient, and then because of the fast release, it comes up just in time for the tail to get a little boost as well. This is all really kind of subtle stuff, a lot of people probably wouldn't think to do that kind of thing, but I don't know, I'm a fan of compression. I like it a lot. Make things loud. This is just handling some kind of some resonant frequencies I wasn't really a fan of in the mix. This is giving like a little bump to, what was that, the side mic, just a little bump around 200 hertz, likewise around 5k. Just sort of using my ears, dialing it in context with the drum mix. All of my drum buses are here. So you got the kick, the snare, you got snare verb. For that, I'm using the T-Rax plate, which I'm a fan of. And then I'm scooping out all of the low end off that so that it doesn't get muddy. And then I'm sort of giving it a little bit of console flavor. This sort of stuff really is subtle. These console emulation plugins, but you could probably see anytime you see this virtual rack plugin, and pretty much every channel has one. I'm sort of trying to give it more of a console-y sound. You know, I don't have 20k to spend on an SSL desk or whatever, so have to make do with plugins. Let's go to a different section of the song. Talk about the kick drum. So if I just put that on loop, take you through the kick drum stuff. You got kick in, you got kick out. So I'll get rid of the processing. Quite a big difference, really. So with a kick out microphone, that was just some cheap but good Behringer microphone that a friend of mine wanted to use. My friend Michael, who helped record the album, we just decided we'd use that microphone for just a bit of low end thump, like sort of faking a sub mic. The main sound of the kick drum is coming from the in microphone. That was an Audix D6, and processing, I'm pretty much just kind of picking the best sound that microphone's given us and accentuating it. Got a bit of a scoop around 200 hertz, dealing with a resonant frequency here, and then a big low end boost, because in a track this slow you could generally afford to boost that region a bit. Kind of depends what you're going for. Some people like to prioritize that region for bass guitar, but I wanted the big thumpy kick drum. Yeah, so toms. Let me find a tom fill. There's a good one at the start that I like. This one. So yeah, let's just focus on the toms for a little bit. Now this 16 tom 4 is a duplicate of tom 3 here, and that's the one that at the start has got all the kind of atmospherics going on. Sometimes it's just easier to duplicate the region and apply it all to a separate track, rather than doing it on the main one and then having to deal with send levels and all that sort of thing. So yeah, you can hear there's quite a lot of bleed on the 16-inch tom there. You could generally get away with that sort of thing in a mix, certainly when the rest of the track is really loud and distorted. Alternatively, what you could do, you could zoom in and you could chop the last hit and replace it with a sample, and that will generally clean up most things. terms of processing, there's not a massive amount. Let's focus on that 10-inch tom. So without any processing, you can hear there's a lot of low end to that tom. So really, I'm just shaping it, and I'm picking the kind of natural frequencies, and some of them I'm reducing, some of them I'm boosting. Like here, I wanted more stick attack, which is generally in the sort of 3 to 5K kind of region. You can hear that without it, it sounds kind of dull. Again, without that low cut, it kind of starts to get a bit swamped. And again, on its own, this sort of stuff, you know, it's like, why are you splitting hairs? But in the mix, those minute changes really make a difference. How in the drum mix, without that low cut, that tom just sounds awful. Just sounds terrible. With it, you know, there's a lot of room there for the kick to come through, for the bass guitar, you know, some of the low end on the electric guitars. So yeah, generally with toms, you kind of want to find where the natural frequency or the fundamental frequency of the tom is. And depending on the project, you probably want to reduce it slightly. Some people like to boost it, but I don't know. I prefer toms to just sort of sit in the background slightly. So yeah, without the processing, they sound very full. And with the processing, they're dialed back a fair amount. But you kind of need that when you've got all the other instruments going. And again, some compression, just because why wouldn't you? I opened the wrong one there, I think. 10-inch tom. Yeah, 3 dB of compression, minus 3 dB of compression. Similar settings to the kick drum, really. You want to try and level them out. You can see that my toms go down in level. You know, the lower the pitch. Because the last thing you want, you don't want a really loud. You don't want a really loud floor tom that's just going to swamp the mix every time it hits. It's not going to sound natural and it's going to be distracting. Let's go over to the floor tom during the introduction of the song. With this one, again, I'm using a BFD floor tom layered. So the main tom is still a part of the sound, which is this. But then you've also got this. And what I've done, the dry sampled tom, I've panned to the right, but I've also sent it to this bus, this effect bus called floor tom dist, floor tom distortion, and that's all the way over here, panned to the left. So I'm kind of I'm almost hard panning this affected floor tom, and I'm processing one half of it pretty severely. I've got the two Sound Toys plugins. So you can kind of hear that the more I turn these up, more distorted it's gonna get. I just wanted a light amount of distortion, and I'm doing it after the delay, so that all of these lovely Space Echo style tails are hitting the distortion, and kind of the more the feedback goes up, the more distorted the signal will get effectively. I can turn this up, and over time it's going to get kind of nastier and nastier and nastier. And for an ambient section like this, it felt really good to kind of make the floor tom more of a texture rather than a beat. Makes you sleep. And I like that you mostly hear the floor tom echoing on the left side. Gives it this weird, disjointed feeling. And then, of course, once it ends, I automate the level, the send level, and that basically stays silent for the rest of the song. You never hear that sound again. What else is there? I mean, there's all this extra processing. Like once all of the kick signals join together at this bus, I do a bunch more processing to it. Some more compression, some kind of console emulation. This mix tool, which I use pretty much for the purposes of automation. So this level changes depending on which part of the song we're in, and then I clip the kick bus so that I know that it never goes above a certain level. I could be confident that it's not gonna distort. Doesn't matter if we're in a quiet section like this, where the kick is fairly subdued, versus this, where Alex is really pounding away at it. I've got complete control, is what I'm saying. Overheads, sort of, scoop the lows, manage the mids, and as much brilliance as you could stand, kind of in the really high region, like the 8 to 10K. I like a bit of reverb in addition to that. So what I've done is I've sent from the overheads to this effect bus, T-Rax plate, 100% mix, some console emulation on that. So if you take that away, add it back in, it's a very subtle thing, but all of these subtleties are what mixing's really about. We've got these ribbon microphones. I can show you those. Oh yeah, the room that we were recording in wasn't really a massive room, so a lot of the reverb and stuff is all kind of artificially added afterwards. It had a nice tight sound, but get rid of this processing. That's a pretty good reflection of what the room sounded like. And all I'm really doing is I'm crushing the hell out of it. And that just sort of, that sort of thing, I like it to sit underneath the main drums and just add kind of grit and texture. for the rooms as well, to be honest. You can kind of hear without these channels how it sort of dries up. Again with the room. That's the natural sound. And with this, I'm effectively slightly subduing the highs, killing these uber lows, compressing the hell out of it with the T-Rax black compressor. A bit of post EQ on that because the compression tends to make it brighter. You can hear how bright that is. That's just gonna hurt to listen to, you know, especially on headphones. So yeah, a nice roll off. You don't want to go too far because then you lose the nice character of the distortion being added by the compression. And then yeah, some console emulation again. Most of the buses have this emulation plugin on it. And so when you make these slight changes and you add them all together, you get that main sound. I've also got this parallel sort of New York style compression. And that's mainly on the kick, the snare, and the toms. So I'm sending from the buses. I'm not sending from the main individual channels. There's not much point doing that. But when you take that away, let's take all that away. Overheads as well. So it's punchy, but then when you add the parallel compression, just gives it so much more. All of that bleed on those toms. It's a good job distorted guitars hide that. Let's put these back. So yeah, overall kind of big picture. Big punchy drums. Compression, room mics, controlled distortion. Samples. I mean, you don't have to use samples, but they do help. Most productions that you hear these days will have samples. I'm not against that at all, really. That's my MIDI for my snare. Just take the snare away. So yeah, that sounds good, but when you add that other snare, just gives it that next level kind of thing. So if you've got any questions relating to the drums, anything I haven't really explained, feel free to fire them away in the comments, whatever forums I've linked this on, and I'll do my best to expand. But yeah, there's not much more else to say about the drums, really. Some nice ribbon mics, nice condensers for the overheads in the room. Some decent dynamics. I think for the toms they were all 421s. The snares were SM57s, and I believe that one of them was a condenser. SE Electronics condenser. But to be honest, the microphones themselves don't really matter. It's about where you put them. You know, don't put them too close to the skin because you're going to lose all the power. Don't put them too far away because you're going to get too much bleed. And then when you process, just make sure you kind of trim out all of the crap. Like on the toms, I've gotten rid of all of the bleed. Everything that you're seeing here is, you know, it's all chopped up. Like I was saying with that floor tom earlier, with the bleeds. You know, you can get away with that much. You really can. Sometimes you can drop a sample in there. Like, I know just hearing it that floor tom is not the original floor tom. That's a sample. And that would have been because on this beat there's a huge cymbal that was just ruining the nice tail of the floor tom. So I wanted to keep some of that. You just got to make those choices. They're creative choices based on what you wanna present. Like at the end of the song here, I didn't bother doing that because I didn't really need any floor tom echoing away, so I just tailed it out. You know, equally, I could have left the whole thing in. But then you would have had all that nastiness. Just depends on what you want to hear, I guess. So yeah, like I said, if you've got any questions, fire them away. I hope this was informative. I hope it wasn't boring. I'll see you in the next video where we'll discuss the bass.